Namaste everyone. Let us continue with the other aspects of biology as far as need is considered. In this session, I am going to take up the topic sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Okay, sexual reproduction in flowering plants. First of all, what is flowering plant? The group of flowering plants is technically called angiosperms, right? The flowering plants are technically called angiosperms, and among the entire group of plants, angiosperms are the only group of plants that produce flowers. Gymnosperms don't produce flowers. Even other lower groups of plants also do not produce flowers. It is only angiosperms that produce flowers. That is why whenever we say flowering plants, it should be or it will be always angiosperms only. And flowering plants also carry out reproduction. Various types of reproduction we already have studied. Asexual reproduction, vegetative reproduction, sexual reproduction. These are the major methods of reproduction, but mainly the flowering plants carry out sexual kind of reproduction because they produce sex organs, and those sex organs are produced in flowers. Okay, those sex organs are produced in flowers. Is that fine? So, flowers are actually the very attractive organ of a plant which bears sex organs. Hence, flowers are meant for only sexual reproduction. Only sexual reproduction. Okay. And these flowering plants are the most variable groups of plants among the plant kingdom, because you have herbs, shrubs, trees, you have creepers, you have climbers, you have lianas. Lianas means the plant which plant the thick plants or thick climbers, woody climbers are called the lianas. And we also have the parasitic plants like Cuscuta, or we have insectivorous plants like Nepenthes or Drosera. So, lots of variations are there in this group of plants. And the entire process of sexual reproduction has been studied very thoroughly among angiosperms. And now if you consider the flower, how will you define a flower? How will you define a flower? Flower is defined as a modified shoot. It is a modified shoot. What do you mean by modified shoot? Modified means, say, suppose this is a plant, this is a twig, here there will be a bud, correct? There will be a bud here. As long as the plant is in vegetative phase, this bud grows into vegetative shoot only. But when this plant enters the reproductive phase, then the buds will develop into the inflorescence. So this becomes inflorescence. So that inflorescence can bear the flower. In some plants, there will be no inflorescence, there will be only one flower. For example, hibiscus. Hibiscus doesn't have inflorescence, it has only one flower. Of course, it is called solitary cyme type of inflorescence, but there is only one flower. That means the bud has modified into a modified shoot. So it's a modified shoot, and that modified shoot is specialized for sexual reproduction. So what is a flower? Flower is a modified shoot specialized for sexual reproduction. So it is meant for sexual reproduction. In what way it is specialized for sexual reproduction? It bears the sex organs. It bears the sex organs. Mainly, each flower of a plant will have two whorls. One is accessory whorl, the other is essential whorl. So two whorls will be there in each flower. Accessory whorls are nothing but the extra structures. Essential whorls are the most important structures. Then which are the accessory whorls? There are two accessory whorls like calyx and corolla. Calyx and corolla. Essential whorls are again two. Androecium and gynoecium. So these are the four whorls of a flower. You all have seen the flower, right? You all have seen the flower. The outermost, see, suppose this is the, what do you call the stalk of the flower? Stalk of the flower is called pedicel. Stalk of the flower is called a pedicel. And this pedicel will at its tip, the tip is called thalamus. Tip of the flower is called thalamus. And that thalamus will have a small green structures. And these green structures will form the petal, the calyx. Calyx, right? Then above that or inside that, there will be colorful large structures this way. This way. So these large colorful structures are called the corolla. Corolla. And inside that, there will be the essential whorls. Like this. And further inside, there will be like this. So this is a flower now. So if you consider this flower, this outermost small structure will form the calyx. Next whorl forms the corolla, the colorful attractive whorl called corolla. Next third whorl are called androecium. Innermost whorl called gynoecium. Calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium are the collective terms. Then calyx is made of individual units called sepals. So this is a sepal. Corolla are made of individual members called petals. So these are petals. What is the difference between calyx and corolla, or what is the difference between sepal and petal? Sepal will always be small in size, petal will be large in size. Sepal will be always green in color, petal will be always colorful, variously colored. Sepal will not have any odor, scent, they are not scented, but petals are scented, they have odor, they have good smell. Okay, so all these are the various differences between sepals and petals. So these two are called accessory whorls. Why they are called accessory whorls? Because they do not play a major role. They have additional role, they have a supplementary role, so not a major role. What is that additional role? Calyx provides the protection to the inner parts during the bud condition. Corolla, being colorful, will help in attracting the pollinators, insects, birds and other pollinators. So petals help in pollination. So that is the supplementary role. They add up. The third whorl is the androecium. Androecium is made of stamens. See, these are stamens. This is one stamen, this is another stamen. And gynoecium is the innermost whorl, which represents the female sex organ. Androecium represents the male sex organ. Gynoecium represents female sex organ, which is present at the center. Fine. So centrally located is gynoecium, surrounded by androecium, surrounded by corolla, and finally at the outermost layer is the calyx. This is how the various layers of the flowers are arranged. Now, these four terminologies, calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium, are specific to the angiosperms. You don't find androecium or gynoecium or calyx or corolla in case of lower forms. That is why restricted to only angiosperm flowers. And look at this. Now this is a twig of the plant. This is a leaf. This is a leaf. Now what do you call this? This is the stem of the plant. This is the leaf of the plant, correct? Now what do you call the place on the stem on which the leaf is attached? Or what do you call the place on the stem from where the leaf is produced? So that is called node. So this is also a node. Hence, a leaf is always produced from the node. Then what is this? The distance between the two nodes, it is called internode. It is called internode. In the same way, now this is a shoot. Now what you have called the flower? Flower is a modified shoot. So what happens there is that I will just show with small difference. Now imagine this is the calyx, this is corolla, this is androecium, and this is gynoecium. Now you consider each as a leaf. Sepals has one leaf, petals has one other leaf, stamens has one more leaf, carpels has another leaf. Now compare. Now here we had node. Here also we have node. Right? This is sepal. This is petal. This is one node. This is another node. Now what do you call the distance between the two nodes? The distance between the two nodes will be called anthophore. The distance between the calyx and corolla will be called anthophore, or the gap between calyx and corolla is called anthophore. Similarly, we have a distance between the corolla and stamens, or corolla and androecium. So that gap is called androphore. That gap is called androphore. And there is also a gap between androecium and gynoecium, and that distance is called gynophore. That distance is called gynophore. So, the internode between sepal and petal is called anthophore. Internode between petal and stamen is called androphore. The internode between androecium and gynoecium is called gynophore. Please remember these terminologies. Hence, it is not that the vegetative shoot having the internode, even the modified shoot like flowers will also have internodes, which are called by different names like anthophore, androphore and gynophore. In some cases like cleome, you will also find gynandrophore, where they are fused together. Okay, gynandrophore. Right, this is the introduction to flowers. Now moving on to essential orals. The androecium and gynoecium are called essential orals. Why? Because they are most essential for the completion of life cycle. If the seed or fruit is to be formed, then the flower, the essential orals are important, because the male sex organ, female sex organ, fertilization, then fruit and seed. Hence essential orals. So we are going to talk only about essential orals from here onwards. To begin with, andrecium. Andrecium represents the third oral of flower. It is the third oral of flower. And it is made of many small units or members called stamens. Andrecium is made of stamens. What is a stamen? Stamen is a male reproductive structure अथवा male reproductive organ. What is a stamen? Stamen is a male reproductive organ. Now, who has discovered these stamens? A scientist called Grew. Grew has found that stamens are the male sex organs. Who has discovered or found that? Who has found that the stamens are male sex organs? A scientist called Grew. Okay, then moving on to the next issue. Now consider a single stamen. Look at this. This is one single stamen. Now this stamen has got three parts, namely filament, anther, and connective. There are three parts in each stamen. The stalk of the stamen is called filament. At the tip of the filament, there are two sac-like structures. This is one sac-like structure. This is another sac-like structure. So each sac-like structure is called anther. So this is one anther. This is another anther. So normally one stamen will have two anthers. So such a stamen with the two anthers is called diathecous stamen. Such a stamen with the two anthers is called diathecous stamen. What do you call, for example, in hibiscus, you have this kind of stamen. In hibiscus, you have this kind of stamen where there is only one anther lobe. Such a stamen is called monothecous anther. That stamen is called monothecous. So this is diathecous anther, this is monothecous anther. Then this filament is connected to anther at a junction. That junction is called connective, or connective connects the filament to the anthers. Okay. Next, each filament, each anther has again two sacs each, like this. Again has two sacs each, and each is called a microsporangium, which is also called pollen sac. Microsporangium or pollen sac. So one anther will have two microsporangia. One anther has two microsporangia. Hence, a diathecous stamen will always be tetrasporangiate. A diathecous anther. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So diathecous anther stamen, diathecous stamen will be always tetrasporangiate, 4 sporangiate. 4 microsporangia will be there, or 4 pollen sacs will be there. Okay. Now, what about this? The stamen with one anther lobe, it will have 2 microsporangia. So a monothecous anther will be bisporangiate, dithecous anther will be tetrasporangiate. But there are some exceptions. For example, a plant called Arsutobium, has only one pollen sac or only one microsporangium. That's an exception. A plant called Arsutobium has got only one pollen sac or only one microsporangium. Actually, two should be there per anther, but in this case there will be only one microsporangium per anther. Next, now each microsporangium in the beginning, in the initial stages, will have sporogenous tissue. Okay. There will be, in the immature condition, there will be sporogenous tissue. The cells of sporogenous tissue later mature into microspore mother cells like this. Microspore mother cells. Each microsporangium will have microspore mother cells this way. So these are microspore mother cells. So stamen has got anther has got microsporangium has got microspore mother cells. Later, these microspore mother cells which are diploid undergo meiosis and produce microspores, which later develop into pollen grains, right? And remember, these microspore mother cells are also called meiocytes. Microspore mother cells are also called meiocytes. What do you mean by meiocyte? Meiocyte is a diploid mother cell which develops into gametes by meiosis. So meiocyte is a diploid mother cell which develops into gametes after the process of meiosis. Now, this is a stamen and with the two anthers. Now at the maturity, if you take the transverse section of this anther and observe under the microscope, if you take the thin section of this stamen with the anthers and observe under the microscope, it shows the following structure. It actually shows this kind of structure. So you find this kind of structure. Okay, look at this. This is one anther, this is another anther. These are microsporangia. This is connective. So this is one anther lobe, this is another anther lobe. So dithecous tetrasporangiate. Now if I enlarge one small portion of this section, it looks like this. Look at this. This is a part of the matured anther enlarged here. You can see a single layered epidermis. Which gives the protection and shape to the anther. Inner to the epidermis, there is a specialized tissue, and that specialized tissue is called endothecium. It is called endothecium. And look at this diagram. The endothelial cells are elongated, narrow and elongated. So it's a specialized tissue. In what way it is specialized? It is considered as a hygroscopic tissue. It is considered as hygroscopic tissue. What is hygroscopic? Hygroscopic means it absorbs moisture from the atmosphere and stores. The cells of endothecium will absorb the moisture from the atmosphere and will store so that the entire anther can remain fresh. or entire anther does not get dried up. If endothelial cells stop absorbing and storing the moisture, then the stamens will get dried up. That's why it is called hygroscopic tissue. Inner to the hygroscopic tissue, endothelium, there are 2-3 layered cells, and those 2-3 layers of cells will form what is called middle layers. Middle layers. The job of middle layers is to store food. Okay, they store food. Inner to the middle layers is present is a microsporangium. This is one microsporangium. It is one microsporangium. This microsporangium is surrounded by or covered by one layered tissue, and that one layered tissue is called tapetum. Okay, this one layered tissue is called tapetum. What is the speciality of tapetum? Tapetum is having dense cytoplasm and it is multinucleated. It is multinucleated because of not having plasmogamy. Karyogamy has taken place, not followed by plasmogamy. So it is multinucleated. Structure. What is the function? Functionally, tapetum will transfer the food from middle layers into these inner cells. So, transport of food. Transport of food. Then tapetum will also secrete a wall material called sporopollenin. Okay, so these are the two major functions of tapetum. One, transporting the food, transferring the food from middle layers into the inner cells. Then also secreting the wall material called sporopollenin. These are the structural peculiarities. These are the functional aspects of tapetum. And within the tapetum, in the microsporangial cavity, there are many microspore mother cells. Microspore mother cells are also called pollen mother cells. Pollen mother cells. These pollen mother cells are always diploid. So, 4 pollen sacs or microsporangia will have plenty of microspore mother cells. They are diploid. So, this is the structure of an anther. So, later what happens is that when the endothelium stops absorbing the moisture, stamen gets dried up and the epidermis, endothelium, middle layers will be together called wall layers of anther. So, wall layers of anther will be formed by 3 different tissues: epidermis, endothelium, middle layers. Got it? So, this is the structure of an anther. Next. Next is the microspore mother cells are there inside the microsporangium. This microspore mother cells will undergo a process called microsporogenesis, that is production of microspores, microsporogenesis. Now here what happens is that inside the microsporangium there are many microspore mother cells. Imagine this is one microspore mother cell which is diploid. Now during microsporogenesis, the microspore mother cell undergoes meiosis and produces the microspore tetrad. This is called microspore tetrad. What is this tetrad? After meiosis, one diploid cell produces 4 haploid cells. So actually there are 4 haploid cells. So each haploid cell is called microspore. So it is the tetrad of microspores. A set of 4 microspores is called microspore tetrad, and each cell is haploid. And remember, this entire tetrad is surrounded by a layer of material called callus. Microspore tetrad is surrounded by callus layer. Gradually, when microspore matures, callus layer will be dissolved by the enzyme called callase, and all these are secreted by tapetum only. Callus layer is also formed by tapetum. Callase enzyme is also secreted by tapetum. So this is the structure. Next, what happens is that gradually, when the microspores mature, they separate from each other after the deposition of a wall material called sporopollenin. Around each microspore, a tough wall material called sporopollenin is deposited, thus forming the pollen grains. So these are pollen grains. Now you call these as pollen grains. You can also call as microspores, but you can call microspores as pollen grains only after the deposition of sporopollenin. Got it? Hence, later they separate from each other at the maturity. And remember, pollen grain is the immature male gametophyte. Pollen grain in the initial stage, pollen grain will be considered as the immature male gametophyte. So this is how the microsporogenesis takes place. You will consider this microspore mother cell as a meiocyte. In the competitive exams, you will get a question like this. There are 2748 microspores or pollen grains. Then how many microspore mother cells were present? So what you should do? You should multiply them by 4. Divide them by 4. Because each microspore mother cell produces 4. So these are the number of pollen grains. You want to identify, determine the number of pollen mother cells. Divide by 4, it will be this much. This is the number of pollen mother cells that were present in the microsporangium. So these kind of questions you will get in plenty in the competitive exams. Very simple mathematics. So microsporogenesis is over. Microsporogenesis is over. Next is the structure of pollen grain. Now pollen grain has been formed by the deposition of sporopollenin. The pollen grain has been formed. Now suppose this is the pollen grain. That pollen grain will have this kind of structure. This is one single pollen grain. Now this pollen grain is always haploid, has a haploid nucleus in the center with the cytoplasm, and is covered by 2 wall layers. The outer wall layer is called exine, inner wall layer is called intine. Okay, outer wall layer is called exine, inner wall layer is called intine, and exine is made of the wall material called sporopollenin, and intine is made of the wall materials like cellulose plus pectin. Cellulose and pectin. Got it? And Among all these wall materials, sporopollenin is the most hard wall material in the world. And even today, we have not been able to get an enzyme that can degrade sporopollenin. There is no enzyme that can degrade the sporopollenin. That is the speciality, and it is the hardest. So what is the benefit of sporopollenin? It helps in the longevity of the pollen grain. Okay, it can remain dormant, it can remain alive for any long period of time, because there is sporopollenin, so that inner contents will not be destroyed. And this intine is made of cellulose and pectin. One more importance of the significance of exine is that the exine is decorated. Exine is decorated. Look at this. This is one type of decoration. Hundreds, thousands of decorations are there. This is the way the sporopollenin is deposited. You may be surprised to know that there is a branch of biology called palynology, which studies the pollen grain structure, and the people who are experts in palynology are called palynologists. Remember, these palynologists can identify the species of the plant based on the decoration. Then imagine, for each species of plant, the decoration is unique, using which the plant will be identified. So it is something great, something remarkable. Hence, this is the structure of a pollen grain. Next. Now, this pollen grain will grow into the gametophyte, development of male gametophyte. Development of male gametophyte. How the male gametophyte is developed? See, this is the pollen grain with the haploid nucleus. Now, this haploid male pollen grain undergoes unequal division and forms two unequal cells. The larger cell will be called vegetative cell. The smaller cell will be called generative cell. Smaller cell will be called generative cell with the respective nuclei. Now, this you call a two-celled male gametophyte. Two-celled male gametophyte. Now, in majority of angiosperms, that is in 60% of the species, in 60% of the angiosperm species, the pollination takes place in this two-celled stage. Pollination takes place in the two-celled stage. In remaining 40% of the species, the generative cell undergoes further division to produce two sperms like this. Now, this is called three-celled male gametophyte. Three-celled male gametophyte, and now this three-celled male gametophyte can also get pollinated in remaining 40% of the species. Understood? So, this is, now you call this as the matured male gametophyte. Matured male gametophyte, right? And these pollen grains can remain viable for any long period of time, and it differs from plants to plants. Viability means the longevity to which the pollen grains can remain alive, which can remain fertile. That is called pollen viability. It differs from plants to plants. And pollens are also used for different purposes. For example, they are used as medicines, as energy supplements for athletes and horses, and even they are consumed in the form of, you see, you get lots of medicinal products out of the pollens. Next, that's about the male sex organ. Next, moving on to the female sex organ, that is the carpel or gynoecium. Before I proceed, just another information. The largest pollen grain is found in a plant called Mirabilis jalapa. Largest pollen grain is found in a plant called Mirabilis jalapa, 4 o'clock plant. The smallest is found in a plant called Myocystis. The longest is found in plants like Zostera. It is a seagrass. Zostera is a seagrass, ocean plant. So longest, smallest, largest. Now moving on to the female sex organ. The female sex organ is called gynoecium. Female sex organ is called gynoecium, and it is the innermost whorl of a flower. It is the innermost whorl of a flower, and it represents the female reproductive organ, and it is made of many small units called carpels or pistils. Each unit or each member of a gynoecium is called carpel or pistil. Each carpel or pistil is this kind of structure, this way. This is a carpel or a pistil which has a basal swollen structure called the ovary, an elongated narrow tube called style, the terminal receptive organ called stigma. So these are the three parts of a carpel or a pistil. Stigma is the receptive part because it receives the pollen grains. Style will facilitate the transfer or passage of pollen tube. Ovary is the most significant part of the plant carpel because it has got ovules. See, now you call this ovary has got it may be there, may not be there, will have chambers. Each chamber of the ovary is called locule. You may be knowing that. Number of ovaries will also differ. A gynoecium can have 1 carpel monocarpellary, 2 carpels bicarpellary, 3 carpels tricarpellary, tetracarpellary, pentacarpellary, polycarpellary. Similarly, an ovary can also have chambers based on the number: 1 chamber unilocular, 2 chambers bilocular, 3 chambers trilocular, 4 chambers tetralocular, pentalocular, multilocular. Right. For example, cotton is multilocular, pentacarpellary, multilocular, cotton. Even lady's finger, pentacarpellary, multilocular. Then this one, mango is unilocular, monocarpellary, unilocular. Tamarind, monocarpellary, unilocular. So many variations will be there. And again, the one single gynoecium, if is polycarpellary or bicarpellary, tricarpellary or polycarpellary, they may be present in the fused condition or in the free condition. If fused, the gynoecium is called syncarpous gynoecium. If free, the gynoecium is called the apocarpous gynoecium. Syncarpous gynoecium, apocarpous gynoecium. So let it be. But this locule will have the significant parts or structures called ovules like this. There will be ovules. So this is an ovule. Ovule is also called megasporangium. Okay. And In gymnosperms, we only had ovule. There was no ovary. That's why we did not have fruit in gymnosperms. That is the difference. Let's study the structure of an ovule in a matured flower or matured carpel. Okay, structure of an ovule. Let me draw a very simple diagram. This is the ovule. Now this stalk of the ovule is called funicle. Stalk of the ovule is called funicle, and this is the body of the ovule. To this body of the ovule, funicle is attached at the junction called hilum, and this entire ovule is covered by wall layers. Each wall layer is called integument, and there are two integuments, outer integument and inner integument. Outer integument and inner integument, and the integuments are not continuous. They have formed two openings. One opening is called micropyle. The other micro opening is called chalaza. Normally, chalaza and micropyle will be opposite to each other. Central mass of tissue within the ovule is called nucellus. And nucellus is most important part because it provides food. It will have stored food material and provides food for the growing embryo sac. And this is the embryo sac. Embryo sac is also called the female gametophyte. Embryo sac is also called female gametophyte. And that embryo sac will, if I enlarge it here, suppose this is the embryo sac, that will have a set of cells like this. This is an embryo sac. And this embryo sac has got at one end a set of 3 cells, and these set of 3 cells will form antipodal cells. Antipodal cells. And at the bottom we have a set of 3 cells which will be called egg apparatus, consisting of a central cell called egg, the female gamete, the other 2 cells called the synergids. Synergids plus egg will form egg apparatus. Egg apparatus. The central cell will be called of course it is called central cell. That central cell will have 2 polar nuclei. It will have 2 polar nuclei. Got it? So, an embryo sac has got 3 plus 1 plus 3, 7 cells, and 3 plus 2 plus 3, 8 nuclei. Thus, a matured female gametophyte will be 3-celled and 8 nucleated. So, this is the structure of an ovule. And ovule is of different types. Okay, there are different types of ovules like orthotropous ovule, anatropous ovule, campylotropous ovule, sarcinotropous ovule, amphitropous ovule. So many types of ovules are there. I just I'm introducing, not going into details. Ana means inverted, ortho means straight, campylotropous means it is horseshoe shaped, amphitropous means also almost a horseshoe shape with slight variations between campylotropous and amphitropous, and sarcinotropous means it is completely inverted by 360 degrees, coiled by 360 degrees. Okay, so different species will have different types of ovules, but 80% of the angiosperms have got the anatropous ovule. This is important. 80% of the angiosperms will have anatropous ovule. So major species or major species of angiosperms are having anatropous ovule. Next, development of female gametophyte. Development of female gametophyte. Before that, the megasporogenesis should take place. Megasporogenesis should take place. What is that megasporogenesis? See, as we had the microsporogenesis where microspores were formed from microspore mother cells, here in megasporogenesis, megaspores will be formed from megaspore mother cells. Now how it happens? Look at this. This is the ovule. This is nucellus. Now what happens during megasporogenesis is that one cell of the nucellus towards micropyle. One cell of the nucellus towards micropyle becomes megaspore mother cell, which is diploid. It becomes megaspore mother cell, which is again a meiocyte. Now this megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis or reduction division and produces a linear tetrad like this. It produces a linear tetrad, a set of 4 haploid cells which are called megaspores. Later, among the 4 cells, the 3 cells towards micropyle degenerate. Okay, these 3 cells towards micropyle degenerate. The one megaspore towards microchalaza remains functional. And that cell is called functional megaspore. Which is diploid. It is called functional megaspore. Now this is megasporogenesis. Okay, megasporogenesis. What happens? One cell of the nucellus towards micropyle differentiates into megaspore mother cell, which undergoes meiosis and produces a linear tetrad of megaspores, haploid megaspores, of which 3 cells towards micropyle degenerate, leaving behind one single cell towards the chalaza, which will be considered as functional megaspore. Now this functional megaspore becomes the female gametophyte or embryo sac. Is that fine? Next, this megaspore, functional megaspore, see, this is functional megaspore, develops into female gametophyte. And normally we consider the polygonum type of embryo sac development. In majority of the plants, the type of embryo sac development will be called polygonum type of embryo sac development because it is named because for the first time observed in a species of plant called polygonum, but similar kind of will be there in almost all the species. So it is a popular mode of embryo sac formation, and this was first discovered by a scientist called Strasburger. Now, what happens during the development of female gametophyte? The functional megaspore, the nucleus of the functional megaspore undergoes mitosis and produces 2 haploid nuclei, followed by this functional megaspore enlarges in size enlarges in size, and one haploid nucleus each will migrate to the poles like this, followed by one more round of mitosis at each end, producing two haploid nuclei, which further undergo one more round of mitosis at each end, producing four haploid nuclei. Now this is called two nucleated stage, four nucleated stage, eight nucleated stage. Now after that what happens is that there will be rearrangement of those nuclei. So how the rearrangement takes place? Now this is called chalazal end, this is called micropylar end. At the chalazal end, among the four haploid nuclei, three nuclei will come together and form a set of three cells and will be called antipodal cells, leaving behind one single nucleus. Similarly, in the other end, micropylar end, among the four, three will come together and form egg apparatus, leaving behind one more nucleus. In the next stage, now this is one polar nucleus, this is another polar nucleus. Both the polar nuclei will migrate to the poles, center, and form a central nucleus or central cell, and the egg apparatus will be produced like this. Now this is considered as a matured female gametophyte or matured embryo sac. This is central cell, antipodal cells, this is egg, synergids together forming egg apparatus. Correct? Egg apparatus. And the 3 cells plus 3 cells, 7 cells plus 1 central cell, 6 cells plus 1 central cell, 7 cells, 7 nuclei celled, 3 nuclei plus 2 nuclei, 5 plus 3, 8. Hence, a matured embryo sac will be 7 celled and 8 nucleated. Since one single megaspore has developed into an embryo sac, this type of embryo sac formation is also called monosporic type of embryo sac development. Okay, it is called monosporic type of embryo sac. Why monosporic? Only one single functional megaspore has developed into a complete matured female gametophyte, hence called the monosporic type of embryo sac development. Now male gametophyte, the pollen grains are ready. Female gametophyte, the embryo sac is ready. I will stop this session here, and remaining we will discuss in the next session. Okay, thank you.